It's your boy D.Boom for LLE.Ascension, and it's time for another LLE.Ascension segment. I'm gonna entitle this segment "The Evolutionary Races of Color." This will be paper 64. Paper 64, chapter 1, which is the Adonic Aborigines. Okay, so before I even get into this, if you haven't checked out my video list, immediately after this, okay, go to the Adona. It's spelled A-N-D-O-N and F-O-N-T-A. These are the names of the first Adam and Eve, like the pre-humanoid Adam and Eve. You know what I mean? That people before Adam and Eve, it was a pair. Andon, A-N-D-O-N, and Fonte. Okay, I do a whole breakdown on who these people are, why they're important, and the reason why they got us here. You know what I mean? I would kind of go back and kind of like break this down, but this is a whole path in itself. I might come back, but I already really gave you the gist of it. So if you want to pause this, check out that video, which ain't that long. It's a nice little rant. It's a rant. It's the Andon and Fonte rant. You can come back to this and we can get started. Because this first thing I'm going to get to you to is the evolutionary races of color. This is how multi-races appeared on Earth. So, the human race is almost 1 million years old at this point. And the first half of the story roughly corresponds to like the pre-planetary prince days when, like, you know, before humanoids was even around, before the primates even split. Like I said, you had administration who are still on Earth to this day that you can't see. Planetary administration. They've been around here walking amongst us, making sure that the evolution on our planet happens in the form that it needs to happen. Yes, they are helping us with genetics. That's the reason why Adam and Eve was even sent here, to get their raw, pure DNA in us, the reason why we look like such. And they're indigo people. Excuse me. Yeah, indigo. Their color is indigo. There's 6 races here, but it's a total of 7 races. The master race are the indigo people. That's Adam and Eve's bloodline. Like I said, if it wasn't for Adam and Eve, we wouldn't look the way we look. We will still look like Andon and Fonte, which is some real Neanderthal-looking pre-humans. They don't look saucy and sexy like this. You know what I mean? They look like straight like Worf off Star Trek. So many of man's earliest religious emotions grew out feelings of like hopelessness and like a shut-in environment or a situation that made you think. Once again, this is pre-human times. You know, when there was no explanation for the smoke coming out your mouth in a cold day, or lightning hitting the tree and setting it on fire. You're going to look at it as a lightning god and a fire god putting wrath on you, as far as to that shit was just one connected instance. But it says these progressive Andonites. Andonites are the children of Andon and Fonte. These were Andonites. If you ever heard the term Andonites, these are the descendants of these pre-humans. Okay, and it says these progressive Andonites would not turn back to their inferior tree-dwelling relatives in need of assistance. Once again, what made this species so superior, this pre-human species so superior, was, like I say, they didn't mess with riffraff. They didn't mess with dumb. You know, it's like breeding. You're going to breed with the best pedigree. You wouldn't breed your dog who has ultimate pedigree with a fucking mutt mix of 2 cousin dogs or 2 brother and sister dogs that had sex and made this thing here. You wouldn't want to intermingle with that. They had enough sense to know that. It says, while the Anunnaki tribes were developing, the pioneers of what present-day humans are, in the midst of the hardships and privations of these rugged times, these hard times that was going on through these people, their backward cousins were luxuriating in the tropical forests of the land that they kind of pre-came from. So these karma, this is the beginning of new karma for pre-human beings. It's like, yeah, we did split apart to make ourselves more dominant than you guys. However, we're living in mountains and caves and treetops, being chased by animals we never fucking seen before, while y'all living in paradise. Matrix, real world, like Zion Matrix, it's the same shit applying. Before Adam and Eve, before religion, the whole Matrix shit still applies. These apes these primates who separated themselves, they're not even primates anymore, because this is millions. Because it takes millions upon millions upon millions of years for species to evolve. We came from primates. So it had to take some time for us to get to primates, even to where we're at right now. Because once again, the human race is almost 1 million years old. Shit. That's a long ass time. 1 million years old. And humans been around. If Earth was an hour, humans only been around 15 minutes of this hour. Meaning, the first minute humans got here was this shit right here. The Matrix. By them separating themselves from this good area. Like, if these advanced primates lived in these tropical areas where they're like dumbass cousins, primate cousins, thrived in, civilization would have started earlier. You know? Adam and Eve would have came earlier. It would have been a whole new program. Right? But instead, it's like ignorance is bliss. Some of those pre-humans went back to that. Meaning, they had sex with dumb monkeys who probably don't even understand the language that he's speaking. Probably just for the sex. The fact that he could probably dominate all those primates and shit. Probably be like the king of those little dumbass, but they're primates. They're not pre-humans. It's like ignorance is bliss. He probably just moved there for free sex, good food, and the weather. Which is what divine masculines do on a daily. Take a divine situation with a divine partner and go be in a place that's more comfortable. 950,000 years ago, the descendants of Andon and Fonte had migrated far to the east and to the west. They began populating. And upon populating, you got pockets of people. So you had different peoples before people became different colors. People were all one color or one kind, one race at one point. So you had different kind of peoples. You had the foxhole peoples, which 900,000 years ago, the arts of Andon and Fonte, and the culture of Anagar. I forgot to mention Anagar. Anagar is like the first priest. Let me tell you who Anagar is real quick. Anagar is the first truth teacher. Anagar, who assumed the leadership of a couple mini tribes, brought peace among all of them for the first time, led all of them in worship of the breath giver to men and animals, organized religion. Agnar, Anagar is his name. Anagar was the first truth teacher. Remember, they can't explain what breath is. They don't know what soul is. They can't explain these beasts that they see. They can't explain volcanoes. They can't explain earthquakes. Someone has to explain it. Someone has to get enough sense to start at least making sense of what the fuck's going on. Anagar. That'd be who I would be back in that time. I would be the person who analyzed shit and seen shit. So once again, it says, Agnar assumed the leadership of tribes and brought peace among all the neighboring tribes for the first time and led them all, everybody, different tribes, people who were warring each other, killing each other, beefing with each other, had different views and different cultures and shit. This one guy, Anagar, brought them all together to worship the breath giver to men and animals, not just human beings, to animals. Think about that shit. They're not fully fledged human beings, but yet they have reverence and respect for animals. Anyway, it says the Ananites early developed a fear of the elements: thunder, lightning, rain, snow, hail, ice. But hunger was the consistently reoccurring urge of these days. It was hunger that led to slaughter, hunger that led to murder, hunger that led to people doing things they normally wouldn't do. And, you know, it says very early in the anhedonic peoples, they formed a habit of refraining from like eating the flesh of animals during like tribal veneration. So meaning when they gave reverence to this breath giver, they did stuff to kind of show respect on that day. This is where worship originated from. Not only reverencing the breath giver, but showing the breath giver respect. This is where sacrifice also came into the play. Came from somewhere. This era. Now, money, like giving tithes and offerings and stuff like that, that came during Jesus' era. That's one of the big, many things people don't really be realizing that Jesus brought to the table that they be sleep on. He the reason they ain't burnt sacrifices no more. But at any rate, it says the origin of sacrifices as a part of worship have been first initialed here. And it says this idea was elaborated by Moses in the Hebrew ritual, which was preserved in principle by the Apostle Paul as the doctrine of atonement for sin by the shedding of blood. You know, since food was the all-important thing at this time, these primitive human beings, you know, were shown by prayer to make things happen. And it's like through prayer they start to see changes. Once again, Agnar, he created worship. He didn't create religion. He just organized it. That's why it's called organized religion, not founded. Because these thoughts been around. It's just you got to organize them. So from him organizing like people to worship, to get on one accord for 1 second and bow down to a nigga that's greater than you, like on some bow down shit. Like, what's our connection? Like, he brought everybody and made them just, hey, just take a second and recognize something that's greater than us. And by him doing that, he put everybody on one accord. From people being on one accord, it went from worship to devotion, devotion to sacrifice, sacrifice to prayer. No, prayer to sacrifice, excuse me. Worship to devotion, devotion to prayer, from prayer to sacrifice. And a prayer that he used to say, and I'm going to keep moving from this section and go to the next section, a prayer that they used to say as pre-humans. O breath of life, give us this day our daily food. Deliver us from the curse of the ice. Save us from our forest enemies, and with mercy receive us into the great beyond. Heaven, son. Pre-heaven, the great beyond. Pre-God, the breath giver. This shit is amazing. These are just groups of fucking monkeys, ooh, and and like a couple thousands of years ago. Now they're getting together and worshiping God. Once again, Andon, and Fonte were the first people to have thought adjusters, meaning God inside them. So if God was inside them, of course God's showing up in their offspring. God wasn't just on them two. At one point, it was only God on two people on this whole planet. Think about that. At one point in time, God was only in the minds and hearts of two individuals on this whole planet. He was already in the animals and shit. But we talking about consciousness. We ain't talking about just animal instinct to where you an animal and you just existing. We talking about consciousness. That's awesome. So, Andon and Fonte, the splendid founders of the human race, received recognition at the time of the adjudication of Urantia upon the arrival of the planetary prince, the devil. In due time, they emerged from the regime of the Mansion worlds with citizenship status on Jerusalem. Meaning, to this day, Andon and Fonte, these two pre-human humanoids, are high-ranked officials in hierarchy and life development outside of Earth. Meaning, from Earth, from Urantia, they ended up ascending. They doing work somewhere else. They're not even in heaven right now. They still putting in work on other planets, using what they learned from here to use in the next world. Message. That's what the hell we as human beings are going through Earth. We're going through the same shit. We're going through Earth, going through all this stuff for a reason. For us to take with us to the next spot. We don't descend nowhere. There ain't no hell. You know what I'm talking about? The only hell is non-existing. God will make you non-exist before he puts you in the same place where devil worshippers think they going when they die. Fuck out of here. Fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? So, origin of colored races. 500,000 years ago, Bodenan tribes of the northwestern highlands of India became involved in another great racial struggle for more than 100 years, and relentless warfare raged when a long fight was finished. Tribes. Andon and Fonte. They had kids, that had kids, that had kids, that had kids. Thus, these kids had tribes. These tribes had other people, thus populating the earth and shit. But once again, they all come from the same bloodline. What happens when people come from the same bloodline? It tends to be some mutations and some deficiencies and some deformities here and there. So still, at one place, there still need to be something brand new to spur from nothing. One thing God does, he creates nothing out of something. Before life was on earth, there was no life, and all of a sudden, life started. It was invertebrate fishes and shit until all of a sudden, vertebrates came out of nowhere. Just like the fucking single cell bacteria came out of no fucking where. And it multiplied and by itself out of no motherfucking where. Just like it was nothing but fish. This was a water world, son. Nothing but fucking fish in here. Fucking amphibian came out of nowhere. Frog came out of nowhere. You know what I'm talking about? From frog, fucking amphibian, reptilian, boom. Mammal came out of nowhere. From mammal came to primate. From primate came to thought. Freaking human, my dude. We didn't come from nothing. We came from something. Only thing that came from nothing was the first download of life that was implanted on Earth for us to even get kickstarted to where we're at. Now, I want to break down these 6 Sangeet races. If you have your Urantia book, I'm just going to leave it on this note. Spend time really reading this because you're going to get your kicks and your rocks off reading this. This is some of the coolest shit I ever read. And it makes so much sense to me, too. But I'm going to just break this down briefly with the last little, probably about 15 minutes I got. I'm going to spin it on the Sangeet races of Urantia. Now, this is how colors started. It was all one master race, which is what the master race want to do again. Is just, you know, they got to eliminate us to make sure they're back, but they're not even the master race. Once again, the master race was Adam and Eve. They're violent. Keep that in mind. It's a spectrum. Bubblicious, you know what I'm saying? The human race is the rainbow. The same colors in the rainbow are the races of people. That's why it's 6 human races, but the 7th race is Adam and Eve, and their race is the violet race. So, once again, all these children that came from Adon and Fonte, they got better with each generation, so to speak. Every generation, they got smarter, stronger, better, more efficient, more cognitive, more Christ conscious, right? All these like descendants of these 2 pre-humans, out of all these descendants, we get to this one section right here. This one group of the family, this one unit right here. And from this unit, mankind starts. Let me show you how this shit happens. So these are called Sun Geek children. The Sun Geek family. The Sun Geek family are the ancestors of all 6 colored races on Urantia. All these multicolors came from one color, and that one color was the Sun Geek family. Out this one family, colors were born. These Sun Geek children, 19 in number, were not only intelligent above their fellows, but their skins manifested a unique tendency to turn various colors upon exposure to sunlight. Among these 19 children were 5 red, 2 orange, 4 yellow, 2 green, 4 blue, 2 indigo. So, excuse me, Adam and Eve are the violet race. Indigo are the black race. Makes sense, don't it? I mean, Adam and Eve are violet. I mean, we're indigo. I mean, if you really look on the perspective, I mean, any rate, it ain't about all that anyway. But the reason why Africa is the home of all races and shit. You know what I mean? Or, you know, I'll break that down later. But any rate, 6 Sun races of Urantia. It says on an average evolutionary planet like this one, 6 evolutionary races appeared one by one. The red man was the first to evolve. It says Urantia was also something new in Satania. That's the local system we live in. On no other world in the local system has such a race of creatures that evolved with this much colors. Like I said, we're the only race in this sector that look the way we do. We're only all these other races. Like I say, the reason why they have evolved because there is one race, one sound, one language. Of course, they can work on one accord because they're the same people. We were multicolored, baby. We're a melting pot. Feel me? That's what makes us special. But it's also our downfall because we're all not on one accord. So the red man, first evolutionary race that advanced. It says, these people were remarkable specimens of the human race. In many ways, they were superior to Andon and Fanta. They were intelligent group, and they developed tribal civilization and government. This group, the red man, excelled in tribal civilization and government. They were always monogamous. Even their mixed descendants seldomly practiced plural mating. Monogamy, baby. Red man. In later times, they had serious prolonged trouble with their yellow neighbors, the yellow man, in Asia. Red man, yellow man, they both come from Asia. They're Asiatic. However, red man, American Indian, Native American. Once again, let me read that shit one more time for y'all. It says, the red man is the first to evolve. The first to really evolve as a race were the red men, the Native American Indians. Which makes fucking sense because they predicted the internet and a whole bunch of other shit with nothing. They're the closely ones related to the Mayan Indians in my point. Like in my freaking view. And the freaking Mayans, like I said, the Mayan calendar is the most exact calendar up to date. The red man was, they was advanced. It's the reason why I guess whites took their land. For some savages, these motherfuckers were kind of they're kind of evolved. And then we're wiping the red man out. The Native American is the only race on the planet that's about to get wiped out entirely for a reason, cuz shit. Let's go to the next race. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get up off these. Yeah, red man. When the red man crossed over into America, he brought along much of the teachings and traditions of his early origin. His immediate ancestor had been in touch with the later activities of the world headquarters of the planetary prince. So the red man is the Native American Indians. They are the most highly, like I say, advanced, looked at from the outside looking in. Every race got their swag, as you will see. So second to advance was the orange man. Now keep in mind, the orange man and the green man don't even exist anymore. And I'm going to tell you where their descendants come from too. Now, actually the orange race is extinct. And the green race got absorbed by the violet race, which are the Africans. And Caucasians, because the Caucasians come from us. And, you know, that's going to be a lesson in itself. But it'll make sense once I break that down. You wouldn't have a white race without Africans. Because your white race come directly from Africans. Orange Man. The outstanding characteristic of this race was their peculiar urge to build anything and everything, even to the piling up of vast amounts of stone just to see what tribe could build the largest mound. The Orange race was the first to follow the coastline straight down towards Africa as the Mediterranean Sea withdrew to the west. But they never secured a favorable footing in the African territory because they were wiped out by the by the later arriving green race. So the green race exterminated the orange race, and then the green race got absorbed by the violet race, which are modern day Africans. So modern day Africans are a mixture of green races and orange races mixed together with the violet race. Yellow Man. The primitive Yellow Man tribe were the first to abandon like the area where, like, when the dawn of civilization, when civilization, like the cradle of civilization, the Yellow Man was the first to dip away from them. Red Man was actually the first to dip away, but they were the second to dip. The Orange Man were smart as far as like their what they brought to the table. They brought to get together like manpower. Manpower was their strength, like to organize, get together, organize to build things. So did the Yellow Man, but it says the Yellow Man race, they developed a home life based on agriculture. Intellectually, they were somewhat like inferior to the Red Man, but socially and collectively, they proved themselves superior out of all the Sangeet races. Out of all the Sangeet races, the Yellow Man kind of mastered agriculture and making that a part of the day-to-day culture of their lives. Really look how Asians deal with agriculture. They built their empire of agriculture, like tilling to the land, creating the land, making the land big enough for them to make everything that they need. Everything they need is where they are. And if you really look at it, China is the only really self-sufficient country. I mean, yeah, they export and import a lot of shit, but you really don't hear too much coming from them. They pretty much got their shit on lock. How they maneuver on lock. You know what I'm saying? Now, like I said, the Yellow Man, they're modern day, you know, Asians. You know what I'm saying? Chinese, Asian descent, things of that sort. So, from the days of the cradle of life to the modern days of China, the yellow race has been numbered among the more peaceful nations of Eurasia. This race received a small but potential legacy at the later imported Ottoman stock. So, for example, during this time, when they were just establishing before Adam and Eve, once again, Adam and Eve's bloodline turned each and every one of these races into a better, stronger, faster, better race. That's what Eve did. And if you don't know what if you don't know what Eve did, check out my Eve rant too. I got an Andon and Fante rant, and I got an Eve rant. They're in my video selection. Please look at my videos. When you see these stories, it's going to paint this picture even broader than what it is right now. Yellow Man. The Yellow Man survived being dominated by the Green Man and the Orange Men. They were kind of weaker in stature. Orange Men were very stronger, very powerful, very savage, more savage than these Yellow Men. But however, these Yellow Men had agriculture, they had the use of the land, and they had intellectual stuff. It's kind of like a kung fu monk trying to fight a drunk biker at the bar. The monk is going to win on top. And he really doesn't have to fight the monk. He can just let the monk fight, and he can just let the monk fight himself by deflecting the monk's actions. Like, they've been on that shit from the gate. They never dealt with conflict. They survived. And by surviving, when the orange men and green men wiped each other out, and the violet men absorbed the green men. The yellow men took off right in time before they got absorbed by the violet men. And I'm saying, men, these are races, these are tribes, these are many people. The green race was one of the less than able groups of primitive men, and they were greatly weakened by the extensive migrations to different directions. Before the dispersion, these tribes experienced a great revival of culture under the leadership of a person named Fantod, some 350,000 years ago. The green race split into three major divisions: the northern tribe, the eastern tribe. Okay, the northern tribes were subdued, enslaved, and absorbed by the yellow and blue races. The eastern group were amalgamated with the Indian peoples, blue race, people in those days, and remnants are still persisting amongst them. So the green race is still alive. Like, people who were wiped out are still around. And the green race, I need to check that out. I'm anxious to see what a green race person looks like. And the southern nation entered Africa, where they were destroyed and almost dominated by their equally inferior orange cousins. See, Africa, you had the orange race, green race, and the violet race, but it was just more violet than anybody. Like, and violets are us. Blacks, Africans, you know what I'm saying? Like, but we fucked ourselves up too. Like, it's a line in here that's slick racist in this book. I can't wait to see it so I can point it out. But I know what point they were making with it, which made me question who wrote this book and shit. But it's legit. It's just something in here I do want to point out for people who do know this book, in case y'all noticed that or not. But at any rate, oh shit. It says here, in many ways, both groups were evenly matched in the struggle since each carried strains of the giant order. Many of their leaders being 8 to 9 feet in height, these giant strains of the green man were mostly confined to southern or the Egyptian nation. The remnants of this victorious giant green men were subsequently absorbed by the indigo race, the last of the colored peoples to develop and immigrate from the original Sangik center of desperation. Yes, Africa is the motherland. That is the cradle of life. Africa is just like the house that every race stayed in at one point. But life the cradle of life started like, it's like where Africa meets Asia. You know what I mean? Like, that part, that area, you feel me? And from that part, everybody dispersed. But it's like, carrying on. You got the blue men. The blue men were great people. They early invented the spear and sequentially worked out the rudiments of many of the arts of modern civilization. The blue man had the brain power, and the red man had the brain power of the red man and associated with the soul and sentiment of the yellow man. The Adamic descendants, Adam and Eve's descendants, the Adamic descendants preferred them to all of the later persisting color races, the Indian race. Like I say, I mess with Indians the long way, bro, because it's like they're the blue man, and I love blue. Blue is my favorite color. It's my favorite hue. It's something about blue I just dig with, and they got it. And this is something about blue people I've always been fond of. At any rate, out of the blue people, it says the early blue men were responsive to the persuasions and the teachers of Prince Caligastia's staff, and were thrown into great confusion by the subsequent perverted teachings of these treacherous leaders. Caligastia, that's the devil. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, this motherfucker's so lame, this motherfucker was trying to tempt pre-humans. It's like a fucking drug dealer selling drugs to kids. Like, Devil been trying to fuck shit up for a long time. Like, it's a fucking lame, you know what I'm saying? But it says this guy, this blue guy leader. Just like Agonar, you got this guy. His name is Orlandorf. He became a great teacher among the blue race and led many of the tribes back to worship of the true God under the name Supreme Chief. So once again, it went from the God being the what did Agnar call him? The breath giver to all men and animals. It went from the breath giver to all men and animals to people acknowledging God as supreme chief. It says white races. So-called white races of the Urantia were the descendants of the blue men, as they were the first modified by a slight mixture with yellow and red, and as they were later greatly unstepped by assimilating the greater portion of the violet race. Whites came out of like albino stuff. Like, I mean, once again, two white people cannot make a black kid. Period. White comes from black. You can go from dark to light. You cannot go from light to black. It don't work like that. Spectrum does not work like that. Feel me? It's the difference going from red to violet. That's a whole different hue. We're talking about black and white here. Got to keep it black and white here, right? All right. Two black people can have a albino all-white child, and that albino all-white child can have a slew of lighter shade descendants, but it's never the other way around. You'll understand the more you get into it. But at any rate, the indigo race. As the red men were the most advanced of all Sangi peoples, so the black men were the least progressive. Yeah, that's that racist ass word I didn't like. Let me read that shit again. They speak all good about all these other races, but when it comes to the niggas, this is what they say. The indigo race. As the red men were the most advanced of all Sangi peoples, so the black were the least progressive. It's crazy how the red man is put over the savage black, but yet they're destroying the red man like savages as if they were black. Right? What they're saying here, for people like myself who, hold on, what you talking about? Like, it's the same shit I see in Africa today, though. It's like, and it talks about it in this book. Everywhere in the violent races, you can go 2 miles from any violet tribe. It's another tribe that speaks a whole different language and have a whole different custom. This shit still goes on to this day in Africa. It's too divided. That's why they can never be on one accord. I'm not dissing them. That's just my personal opinion. I'm African American. Big difference. I'm black, son. I have no history. If I was African, I can literally trace my ancestors past Phoenix City, Alabama, which is where they really stopped for me because I don't know anything past Phoenix City, Alabama. But if I were African, I can go past Phoenix City, Alabama, and really go to see my grandpa, Paul burial site at the home where my whole sub-family live at. That'd be some awesome shit. Niggas don't know their roots. So us to even have some type of roots past 500 years than where we've established, gotta understand that too. Because if we keeping it on multi-races and shit, I gotta get my black on. Gotta get my black power note on real quick. The African-American race only been around for damn near 500 years. African race, Indian race, Asian race, they've been around since this. You feel what I'm saying? They have deep roots. We have none. We only been a population for 500 years. African Americans. And look how much swag and sauce we brought to this world. Think about that. Every other race has been here since the beginning of time. We've only been a race for 500 years, and look what we've done to the world, to food, to inventions. You remember when you was in school? Sit one day in your life and not use anything that a black person didn't invent. You'll be to have the most uncomfortable life in the world. We invented a lot of shit. We've done more in 500 years than a lot of races have done for mankind. So once again, in the same little capade that they got with the red man, they destroying the red man and put the red man, the most evolved civilization on the planet, size them down to 1%. It's reasoning for that. Just like they persecute the African Americans because they don't want us to know that shit, that we've done more than 500 years than most races have done in eternity. And then they take it and flip it on the master indigo race here because they're trying to taint us because we have closer ties to Adam and Eve than any other race in this fucking planet. Everybody has agendas. You just got to understand which agenda you fit in and which agenda you're going with. Knowledge is power. It's good to know stuff like this because all this knowledge I just dropped, if you didn't know, now you know. But now that you know, go teach somebody else. Really, where I want to wrap this whole little message up for today is to really say this. I'm going to say this and I'm going to end it. The last of some geek peoples to migrate from the center of the race origin was the Indigo Man, the blacks. It says, about the time the Green Man was killing off the orange race in Egypt and greatly weakening himself, in so doing, the great black exodus started south through Palestine along the coast. And later, when these physically strong indigo peoples overran Egypt, they wiped out the Green Man out of existence by sheer force of numbers. These indigo races absorbed the remnants of the Orange Man and much of the stock of the Green Man, and certain of the indigo tribes were considered certain of the indigo tribes were considerably improved by this absorption. I'm going to say this and I'm going to end it. Hey, we absorbed. Africans absorbed other races, son. It's a reason they're superior. Absorbed other races, son. An African is 3 races in one. Half man, half amazing. I'm not putting us Africans over anybody. Because just like Africans are different from what they bring to the table, the Indians are different from what they give to life and bring to the table. Chinese are different from what they bring to life and bring to the table. Native Americans, goddammit, we need to help them, Joe, because they at 1%. Shit. Niggas been fucking up the African Americans for a minute, but we still have been in the consistent 12, 14% we've been since we got here. They can't kill no niggas, though. Not like that. They can't kill us like that. Can never get us like that. But we got to do something about the red man, man. They're at 1%. The powers that be, it's a reason. That's all I'm saying. It's a reason. That's all I wanted to say. It's all I got time for. This is just the second episode. Hopefully, third time's a charm, and I can really get more direct with my message. But it's your boy Boom, over and out. Peace.